business does not operate in a vacuum. It's part of a broader world, a broader economy. And there's many things that come together for a business to be successful. And when you look at companies, they're engaged in strategy. Where are they going? What do they want to do? What is their business? How are they going to grow it? How are they going to engage with their employees? How are they going to engage with customers, suppliers? So we're going to take a look, and this is very important, especially at this time of COVID, is that when we look at the firm, whether it be from a finance perspective or an organizational behavior perspective, is what is the environment in which they're doing business? Because that affects what a company does from both perspectives. I'm going to start with the very basic economic assumptions here, and that is price is determined between a willing buyer and a willing seller. And price is influenced by the relationship between supply and demand. So if supply exceeds demand, price goes down. If demand exceeds supply, price goes up. And this includes products, services, and labor. Okay? Now, I know this is basic. You've all covered this, but I don't want you to forget that. Okay? And as we go through this, I think you'll start to see why that's important. Some basic things that we got to set out here as we start out, that we're on the common ground, common understanding. And the economy is what is happening. It's mostly data driven. There's many measures of how the economy is doing, and we can get caught up in that. We're going to focus on a couple of them. And it's a measurement of society to a degree. How does it operate? Then we have the financial markets, stocks, bonds, commodities, and often reflects what has not only happening, but what may be happening in the future. Different people make different assumptions. Thus, there's differences of opinion of what happens. And that's what leads to that buy and sell, supply, demand view. And the market oftentimes reacts to news where the economy, the underlying economy, does not necessarily react as quickly to news because it needs to work its way through the system. And the financial markets are often influenced by program or algorithmic traders. So these are sort of basic assumptions. What we're going to do is we're going to take a look at this macro background. We're going to take a look at the pandemic of 2020. There is a separate video that follows, a discussion of behavioral health, very important. Then we're going to look at mega long-term global trends, the future of business 2021 and beyond. Then we'll look at the economic measurements and forecasts. We're going to look at policy impacts. And finally, how does it impact you personally? We all are impacted by this. What the work we will do in this course. So let's start with the pandemic of 2020. We've been living it now for over 9 months, the coronavirus pandemic. And 2020 started out as an interesting year. Things were reasonably good. We were seeing slowing world economic growth, including in here in the USA. A lot of trade tensions between countries. The stock market was in an upward trend. Unemployment was very low. Inflation was low. Interest rates were low. Airlines were adding new routes, new seats, adding new planes. But at the same time, we had political instability in many places. Then in January, we started hearing about some virus in Wuhan, China. Well, that was before. And we've been going through this for 9 months. I want to introduce something. Now, if you've taken this class with me before, or taken a class in the summer or the fall, this is repetitive, but hey, it's always a good reminder. And that's the black swan theory. And since Roman times, all swans are white was a fundamental truth. And in 1726, in an expedition to Australia, they captured 2 black swans, proving their existence and disproving the theory. Black swans are rare events, and they have an extreme impact. They can only be predicted retrospectively, and not prospectively. You can't anticipate that. So a black swan event is a highly improbable event with 3 characteristics. It's unpredictable. None of us could predict what was happened. It carries a massive impact, and after the fact, we make up explanations that it makes it appear less random and more predictable than it was. So the greater the the lesser the probability of it happening, the more catastrophic it can be. Now, I would say COVID-19 is a black swan event. But it's not gone. If you look at where we are, this is as of the 26th, the day I'm making this, and you can see we're now up to 18.8 million cases, and this is the new cases of what they're running every day. And if you go back to March, the number of cases, look at how it's exponentially grown. Okay, so more and more people are getting affected. After Thanksgiving, we've seen a great impact. We're going to see it again. We look at it, 330 some thousand people dying, 1,000 more people a day. We've hit 2, we've hit 3. Hospitalized 118. These people are in hospitals costing money, taking up space that other people could be in for other issues. Now, the vaccine gives us a lot of hope. Okay, I'm excited to get it, but it's going to take time to vaccinate enough people that we can reduce the incidence of it and make it safer. Tremendous amount of logistics go into this. Now, a recent survey by McKinsey said that not everybody is up to this. Okay, not everybody's consumer ready. If we look at it, most people are open to getting it. 37% right here. 45% are cautious. 18% are unlikely. I'm probably right in here. I got to be cautious. Okay? But when we break it down by different groups, and this is where the impact may be felt more right here, is that there's a lower the people who will get the virus tend to be those who make more, those that tend to be white, and women are more likely to get it than men. So you say, well, okay, what's going on? We don't all want to get it. Shouldn't we all be at 100%? Well, there's a lot of things going on. People are concerned about side effects. Okay, some want to see, well, let's see how it impacts others. I'm probably in that boat. I don't need to get it right now. We're going to be going through this course. I'm not going anywhere in January. So, I can hunker down for another month and see what happens. Development was rushed. When you look at that, and that's a very true statement. Concerned about the ingredients, what goes in. Vaccine is unproven, that we don't necessarily have the amount of data that we need. So think about this, that not everybody is ready, and to make it effective, we need to get a significant number of people who to get vaccinated. And that's a question right now. We don't know. A lot of people are cautious. The logistics, as I said, will be there. Meanwhile, we got all this happening, and that we know that it's less likely that people who make less than 25 plan to get it, less likely that Black or African Americans plan to get the vaccine versus white, lower likelihood that women plan to get the vaccine versus men, for a lot of these reasons. So that's going to happen, is where the influence is. What's the most influential? Physicians, if you have one, CDA, CDC, friends and employer. I think this one is underestimated. Friends and employers are really going to drive this, in my opinion. Impact. Okay, we have this here, and when this happens as COVID, it's going to work its way down the chain. There's a lot of impact. Health, physical and behavioral, economic impact, short-term and long, business, how business operates, what it does, our daily lives. Think about it from your perspective. How do we work? How do we go to school? How do we rest? How do we eat? How do we socialize? How do we exercise? Let's take a look at the impact of COVID-19 on our physical and emotional behavioral health. Let's define trauma. Trauma results from an event, series of events, or circumstances that is experienced by an individual, and now as a group, we're all impacted together. That's physically or emotionally harmful or threatening, and thus has lasting adverse effects on our functioning, physical, social, emotional, or spiritual well-being. Okay? And the impact, this trauma that we've experienced, is staying with us. It will impact us in how we behave in the future. Now, how do we deal with trauma? And both physically, emotionally, behavioral, and cognitive. And what I did is, and this is it, I've moved through a lot of these things, but did you have some decreased concentration? Disrupted sleep? Did you lose interest in things? Did you sometimes feel overwhelmed? How did you feel at the end of this fall semester? Eating more or less than normal? Drinking or smoking more than normal? But the other ones here too. So that's how we deal. So this has been a normal thing. Your responses are normal reactions to abnormal events. Your responses are normal reactions to abnormal events. Now, I would like to just talk to you a moment. And we go through stages, and I think that's important to see that today. Is pre-crisis, everything was good, we got a little warning, then here's the impact, okay? And everybody worked together at first. How are we going to do this? Then we became we've lost interest, okay? And we're working through it now, and we're now going to move through this process and reimagine and reconstruct. If you look back over the last century, we saw some of the world's most successful businesses form during moments of crisis. And this comes from John Kennedy, and he noted that the Chinese used two brushstrokes to write the word crisis. One brushstroke stands for danger, the other for opportunity. In a crisis, beware of the danger, but recognize the opportunity. For some organizations, they're just focusing on survival, one thing. Others are starting to see what is the future. How will we position ourselves after this crisis is past and things go back to a new way? What will that normal look like? We don't know how long this is going to last. Is it a month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months? What does the other side look like? And this applies to you and I in our future. We might call it resilience, or flexibility and planning. How do we withstand that shock? How are we adapting to change? How are we pursuing our new goals? What's the risk? How do we protect the weak spots? We'll see that this is part of both finance and organizational behavior. When we look at some of these things, 73% of Americans have tried new shopping behaviors during the crisis. Will it continue? Why are we talking about this? Why is this important for you to understand this? So that finance operates in an existing world. Decisions are made. How resources are allocated. How we engage with each other as employees and employers. How do we come together? So understanding these things and what's happening and what the future may look like is important. And as I said, much of what's written in textbooks will be rendered obsolete by this black swan event. We'll see that in many cases as we're going. What I'd like to do now is, I could keep talking, but I think I'm going to show you 2 brief videos, and that really sums up some of the things that are going.
Like everyone else, COVID has changed my world, and it's changed my perspective.
In rather breathtaking speed, the pandemic has upended things, like you say, approaching our planning horizons. It seems almost to nothing.
What is it when we think the unthinkable? And in business terms, that could include that the actual market in which you're competing has just disappeared and it isn't going to come back.
Really want to be able to give my mom and dad a hug and some of my in-laws, and I want my kids to see their grandparents. It's just like a really bad situation.
It's starting to get a bit tiresome. Had to borrow some money over the last few months. No money for emergencies.
We estimate that there are an additional 17 million people who are facing food insecurity right now. That's a 46% increase.
%50 of Americans reporting reduction in household spending. We saw U.S. retail sales drop to a record low.
Many people's incomes have collapsed, and the services they need, health services, education services, other services, have collapsed alongside them.
What really happened is we've vaulted about 5 years in terms of both consumer and business adoption of digital in probably just a matter of weeks.
Leveraging data and analytics, there are many things we can do now that we weren't able to before in terms of identifying who's at greatest risk and where we can make the biggest difference and how do we get to people earlier.
We've now done hundreds of implementations completely virtually, which I never thought would have been possible pre-COVID, and we figured it out.
Part of this is a part of a strategy to move towards a more contactless passenger journey, which parallels some of the things the airlines are doing as well.
When we asked women, 1 in 4 women said that they are contemplating stepping out or stepping back.
It's making sure that you allow anti-racism or racial equity, or whatever your chosen favorite, woke term is actually embedded into your DNA as a company.
This is a crisis, but it's also an opportunity for organizations to live their purpose.
I have tremendous confidence that with the brain power and the investment that's happening, that we'll look back on this time and say, amazing how society responded to put this behind us.
My name is Scott Harrison.
Just listen.
This is my wife, my son, and my one on the way.